Okay, this video is going to be more or less advice on how to pick out a lathe for your home shop. A bench lathe, small lathe. I've been kicking the idea around for a couple years, so I put a lot of thought into this, and I was interested and kind of gave up, and now I come back to where I went out and ordered a machine, put a down payment on one a few days ago. And I'm going to try to make this video to explain how I came about it. Like I said, I am a skilled machinist, and depending on where you work, you can get time on the shop manual lathe or Bridgeport milling machine. But also, it's kind of a pain because the machine is being used. If there's a repair or like a new drill holder has to be made, you know, somebody's got to run over and use it. So to set something up and like dial in something, unless you come in on your day off or after your shift and spend hours, you know, which the thing with me is time. That's my problem, is time. I ain't got time anymore. I decided I wanted a few machines around in the garage, around the house to work on. So how you go about it is you have to ask yourself. I made a little list here of what you do, and first and foremost, first step is, you know, what are you going to make? Because that kind of all comes into play of the size of the machine, the features you need on the machine, and what the cost is, number one. Okay? So you got to ask yourself, well, what am I going to make? And then you start working from there and look at what is available and what it can do. And then the second question you kind of ask yourself, and these are not in order of importance, I just made this list while thinking about all this, is, you know, is this a hobby, or is this something that you need for, like, say you have a landscaping business or something, and you need some machines to do maintenance on your equipment. Okay, it's kind of two different things. Are you buying the machine for something you're going to just fool around with when you're bored? You know, it kind of has a direct correlation of, again, how much money you want to spend and what you want to buy. Then, of course, the third thing is your budget. You know, how much you want to put into it. Getting used equipment, or, you know, waiting around if you time is not a thing with you, you know, if you want to wait till the opportunity comes for used machines, you know, that's cool. That's another way to do it, save you some money. You never know, you can go to auctions. They do come up in estate auctions or different odd property auctions, or if some place is closing out, you can get it, or Craigslist, somebody's moving or upgrading their old machine. So you got to kind of come up with an idea of what you want to spend or how you want to go about it. If you got the time to look around, you might be able to get used equipment, you know, and save yourself some money. And also in your budget, you have to realize, say you buy a new machine, you know, there's always tooling. You got the machine, you're always going to need some accessories, depending, again, it goes back to what you're doing. Okay? And then we come up with the last one, your location and power and room, you know, basically where you're going to put it. I have a small portion of my garage. I can put a lathe on a stand. It's not in the way. I really don't want to go through running 220 or changing power or running a circuit or line to the machine. It's pretty straightforward. Just get it into the garage and go. So that's where I'm going with. And you know, I do have the room for it. Where, you know, if all you got's a bench or something down in the basement, you know, it's kind of hard. Another thing, it's kind of hard to go up and down stairs with something that weighs anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pounds, and add a lot. You know, that the room you got or where you're going to place the machine does have a direct effect on what you're going to buy. And of course, other considerations, electricity, power, this and that. So, taking this all in mind, honestly, I started out I wanted to keep the whole thing at around $1,500. I didn't want a huge giant lathe. And I started at that point and was looking in this area, and I'll tell you how it progressed. So what we'll do is I'm going to move the camera and I'm going to show you some of the things, or the reason I'm getting the lathe and what I'm going to try to make, and how I made my decision of going where I did and ordering what I did. And I kind of went way over the budget that I started out having planned. And I'm going to go through, also set the camera up, we'll look at some examples in a catalog. I'm not tech savvy and can't get you screenshots of online stuff, so we're going to kind of do this old-fashioned way. We'll look at a couple machines, and I'll tell you the pros and cons and how I came about making the decision I made. Okay, basically what I need a lathe to do is, the first thing is making custom cartridges for obsolete ammunition. This is an example here where I take a cartridge and I'm trying to get it to the French Gras. I'm taking one cartridge and making it like a 43 caliber. And also, you have to turn. If you notice, there's like a little chamfered edge here where my thumb is. The way I should do this properly is to make a mandrel that'll fit in the primer pocket. Place this on the mandrel, on the little stud, and then run a shaft or rod through the case, tighten it down, and basically have the case mounted in the primer pocket. And then you can turn the rim down, do the back. If you have to turn some of this on the case off, it can all be done. This type of work can all be done on a micro lathe, the 7-inch micro lathe. I could go to work and make the mandrels and stuff on the engine lathe there and then do that. But also, I have a lot of odd cartridges in that where I cast bullets or get custom made bullet molds. And these here are some reloading dies, a couple things. And the one thing that I do use a lot of, this here is what they call an expanding die. Now first of all, your reloading die bodies, the standard is 7/8 by 14 thread, which is this section here, and the nut that goes on. And as you see, basically the die bodies are all the same size, except what happens is what the function is determines like the thread in here and the size in that here. And this nut too is something else I could make. It's kind of locked on. There's just basically a knurled tube threaded that screws into the reloading machine. It's threaded in the back, then either bored, reamed, or machined out in here. What this piece does is it expands the neck for a cast bullet. A jacketed bullet you can basically put in there, and if the base has a bevel on it, you can, when it seats it. So what you would do with something like this is you would expand this out a little and stretch that neck, that's what this step is, to flare it out, so your lead bullet can be placed in there and seated without the edge of the case shaving off any of the lead. And as you can see, this is a different thread, knurled, and then this is kind of a more simplified nut on there than, say, something like this. So the odd sizes, I would have to custom make this section here, and then the steel would have to be hardened and everything else. So you're getting into something, if you're working on this size, that kind of takes you out of the 7-inch class, puts you like into the 9 or 10-inch, which would probably be just right for what I need. Now this is another die. This is a sizing die. How this works, this goes in, this is all hardened, and this has a certain diameter, and this piece here locks into the shaft of the reloading press and then pushes the lead bullet up through, and then there's a reservoir that sits on top of here that you push up the bullets and size them. Some of the more older obsolete guns need non-standard sizes that are not made, and most companies are not going to manufacture something they're not going to sell a lot of. So a custom-made sizing die is something I've been working on. And again, you need a machine with a little bit of horsepower to get this done. A 7-inch mini lathe. It probably could be done, but it would be a lot easier on something bigger. So that's how I kind of come up with the size. It's 10-inch would probably, with size, power requirements, and what I'm doing, would easily handle these projects. So that's how I come up with a general idea of what I'm looking at. And now we'll go to the catalog and I'll show you some examples of the machines. Okay, I have an older Grizzly catalog, so kind of disregard the prices. I'm just using this as an example. You can start down with these real mini micro 4-inch lathes. Then you get up into a 7-inch lathe. Okay, and they have even little miniature micro milling machines. But probably the most common is the 7-inch bench lathe. Grizzly has one, Harbor Freight. For a lot of people, basically it's all they need, like I said, depending on what you're making, what you're doing, how much. If you're just, they're man portable, all you need is a nice little sturdy bench. And there's lots of videos on YouTube where guys compare them and work with them. And for what they do, they work out okay. And, the price is under $1,000. Okay, so if it's a hobby or something, that's great, and it probably works out well. The thing about Grizzly, and the reason I mention them, is they have a comparison thing on their website where you can compare the different models. And it's pretty neat and easy to make up your mind. Now, as far as companies, you got Grizzly. Harbor Freight has lathes. In Greensboro, they used to have all the different sizes on display, but the only one they have now is the 7-inch model. And I don't know if they sell or if you can order them through Harbor Freight and have them delivered to the store or whatever. And that's another thing. Delivery is another thing. I'm going to do a separate video on that. And then the size, that's another thing. Something like this, 1 or 2 men can handle in the crate and everything. And it's really not that bad of a hassle. You can get it up and down stairs and get it set up. And then you can go up to a little bit larger size. And then you get a bigger stand. And probably the weight in that, this is where your weight's going to start getting up, both shipping and handling this device. But you're still with something that runs on regular household current. And you can get combo mill lathes. And then again, if it's light work, if it's simple stuff, these are good. I thought about it, but the thing about mills is the being rigid, the rigidity when you're taking heavy milling cuts. But something like this can be, the mill lathe combo is another option. Okay. Now we get up, and they have all these odd sizes, 9-inch, and with different features to stand. And where I came to my conclusion is I thought probably the best size were these 1022s. And the price is different. It's like $1,300 for this one here that doesn't have the variable speed, and it has a 1-inch spindle bore, which is kind of a feature. And then this is the one I wanted here, is the Grizzly, what is it? This is the 973. That ain't it. Which one did I? Here's mills again, more mills. Now you're getting into the 12 inches, are getting into where you're a bit larger. The 11-inch was the one that I was kind of interested in. What is it? I'm sorry. Alright, you have to forgive me. Yes, it was the 10 by 22 bench lathes. The Grizzly model 0602, I guess, is the one that doesn't have the variable speed. And then the nicer one is the 0752. That's the one I wanted. The reason is, you go on YouTube, there's a couple people that had these with the variable speed, and it's a nice feature. But if you look up the model without the variable speed, there's more videos. A lot of people bought them. The price is like $100 difference. It's like $1,300, and this one's $1,700 now on their website. A lot of people went with this. Again, probably price point. But everybody that has this lathe says that if I could do it over again, I'd go with the variable speed. So I kind of said, all right. So that was putting my budget a little bit at $1,700, a little bit more than what I was looking at the $1,500 mark. Then of course the stand, and that's another thing. I'll go over stands and that. Some people just throw them up on counters or make benches or on some sort of sturdy table. I kind of prefer a stand because I want to kind of level it, and I'll get into that when we go to mount the machine. But I prefer having a stand of some sort that is mated up to the machine. You don't have to, and most people don't. Most people show you the project where they mount these machines to something else other than a stand, but something sturdy enough for roll around tool cabinets costs almost as much as a stand, but then again it is mobile and you do have a storage area under it, so I can understand that. So that's about where I kind of plateaued at, because I think if you go up higher, you're getting into another, and that's still running household current. Okay, now when you get into these here, these are a much different machine. The 11-inch or the 10-inch ones run about 400 pounds. Something like this, you're going into 220 power. It's bigger, it's nicer, got more features, but you're going in excess of 1,000 pounds in that. Now you're getting into more of something you need a shop or a dedicated building or a lot more room than what I have. I mean, this is nice. I wouldn't mind having it, but it's going outside my parameters for what I have available to comfortably put it in the house without making major modifications of things. And so that's kind of where I ended up at. Now, I'll tell you how this all kind of changed and okay, so I kind of showed you how I come about the size. I didn't want to run 220. I wanted to use what I had in the room and the space. So I come about with a 10-inch lathe. Now another thing I did, and I strongly suggest, is you go check out whatever you see kind of catches your eye. See if somebody on YouTube has made it. Sometimes they don't specify the model of the machine. I found a lot more information in videos about stuff I was interested in, just like leveling a lathe or whatever. So you're going to have to look. Some forums like the Hobby Machinist and that. Another good thing. Even though they don't answer my specific question, the guys talk about the companies and some of the stuff they bought, customer service, and just the photographs of how things come, when they deliver it, and that gives me an idea of what I'm going to have to do to prepare to deal with setting it all up and everything. So do your research so you don't get hung up. Now, as for the companies and where to look for lathes, Grizzly Industry is well known, been in business doing this for a while, have an assortment of stuff. You can get Harbor Freight also. Like I said, for some reason they don't really carry any of the larger lathes anymore. They did at one time, but now you only get the little 8-inch, 7-8-inch ones. You have Shop Fox, Sears carries lathes, General Tool, which there's one in Greensboro. You have to order it. All the stuff's online, but it can be delivered there to the shop or the store. I'm sorry. Then if you go for your other two companies, there's Bolton and there's also Precision Matthews. Now I remember researching them. I was going to order this lathe through Grizzly, but a stand was sold out. I called them up, was talking about how I was going to get it delivered, and I'm going to do a separate video on delivery because that's another thing. And I was just about ready to order it, and I started researching it. I said going on forums and looking at other options. And I found on Precision Matthews, I was looking, and they have a machine there. I think it is, hold on a second. Okay, I think I got it. It'd be the PM 1132, I think, VF LB lathe. And what that is, it's an 11-inch swing on the lathe. It's probably a tad bit bigger than the 10-inch I was looking at. And you get it with the complete package, which would be the lathe, just like the Grizzly lathe, the by the 10 by 32, like the 0752. It's about the same size. You get the 3-jaw chuck, 4-jaw chuck, center rest, follow rest, or steady rest, tool kit, and he throws in a quick change tool post holder. But more on that later, okay? Which is included in the package. And it would go a little bit over, be all together with the stand and everything. I think I was looking at 2,200 some, which is comparable if I got the stand in that with the Grizzly and the shipping and everything. They're about the same price. So I said, man, that's a good deal. So I was investigating this Precision Matthews machine, and another feature it has cross feed, so you could face. In other words, not just the one. It has cross feed. It's reversible, and you can do like left-handed threads in reverse directions, which beats the Grizzly 0752 hands down. Okay, so I said, okay, I think I'm going to get this one. Now, what kind of turned me off was on a Grizzly lathe where the chuck goes into the spindle, you got to break it and it comes off with threads. It's a 1-inch something or other thread. It's an odd thread. So it's hard to get chucks other than what the 2 chucks and faceplate. It's a strange thread, but it threads on there. That's one way of doing it. The Precision Matthews machine, the spindle goes through the headstock, and it's a plate that's permanently mounted, and the chuck goes with bolts that you lock on and tighten the bolts around behind it. That's how it affixes onto the lathe. I really didn't like that chuck mounting, and you get the 3 and 4 jaw chuck the same way. It is a standard way of doing it, and in the manual it tells you that if you have real bad run out in your chuck, you can turn that plate, try to square it up and get it, you know. And I'm like, eh. So I was going through a forum, and even though it's not on a website, Precision Matthews has a different machine. One that is slightly bigger. It's like an improvement. How this guy that runs it does it is he takes feedback, and he goes and he has these machines made overseas, and they're made to his specifications. He has different changes and modifications done, and they change every 6 months, or where each batch there's a new type or something. So what he ended up having, which he didn't have any on his website, a photo of it or nothing, is a PM 1228, which is a 12-inch lathe with a 28-inch bed. Where that lathe had a 1.5-inch spindle bore and 1.5 horsepower motor, runs on household current. It's a pretty good sized machine. I kind of liked it, but like I said, that weird chuck mounting system. And it comes with the quick change tool post setup and holders and that. That wasn't a bad deal for a little over $2,000, all, you know, the shipping and everything else. This other machine, I called him up, I talked to the guy, and he goes, yeah, they're on their way. He doesn't have any of them, but The 12-inch model, which sold me on this, and this is what I ordered, is it has a cam lock chuck, which that is the chuck goes into a plate that is permanently on the machine, and you cam lock it on 3 studs. It's usually the standard on a much larger lathe. I like the idea of the cam lock chuck. Plus, it's a certain size, so even if the chuck is crappy and made over there, you can probably find something that'll fit on there. That if you really needed it, you can buy a precision chuck somewhere else, or get a used one or something. Plus, they also make, as an accessory, a collet chuck. I think a 5C collet, which is nice, where a lot of the smaller lathes don't have that option. You have to make some sort of a collet chuck thing to go on there and have it custom made. Where this is a standard item, you can put it on. So I like that, and this also has a 2 horsepower brushless DC motor. So I got more power, a little bit bigger lathe, and this is probably stretching, going to the max, with features keeping within the household current without having to change the power. Size-wise, it's a tad bit bigger than the other lathes, but still it's not going outside the room I have allotted. And the only thing is, the price with the stand, delivering that, ended up, my budget kind of got overstretched. Now it's like almost $3,300. But again, at my age, I don't want to buy a lathe and upgrade later or whatever. This will fit my needs. It also gives me a little extra in case I decide to go further with other than just making my own tools or whatever. So that's why I chose this machine, even though it kind of went over my budget, you know, almost double. But for me, that's the choice, and that's why I made it. The guy is pretty nice to deal with, and also all these companies, you hear good and bad things about all of them. Doesn't matter who they are. Okay, Grizzly, you've had complaints about them. Precision Matthews, they have complaints about them, and they're all in business. You know, they're all pretty good. This guy's pretty informative. He told me there's none in stock. They're on the way. You're going to wait about another month or so. And so I said, all right, I went with it. And that's why I chose it. You know, with a lot of people, the price point, you know, now you're talking a little bit different than $1,500. Okay, so I just felt, for my needs and that, I could go with the extra, and I could come up with the extra money. So, you know, I'm not getting too crazy. And it was what I want. So that's how I kind of made my decision. You can get by with the 9, 10-inch lathes. There's people who do a lot of things, that do a lot of modifications to them, get them to run in reverse and cut left-hand thread and everything else. And, you know, if you got skill in that and the time, it can be done. So that's how I came about purchasing this piece of equipment, is the power factor, size, and some of the features. It's got a lot more features. It has less accessories. I don't get a quick change tool post holder or a 4-jaw chuck. I believe I get the steady rest and follow rest. 3-year warranty. It's got a 15-step quick change thread feed gearbox or something, and it's variable speed. So there's something they modified in this. You can change the speeds, and that's a lot easier. So we'll see. We'll see if I made a good decision or not. But that's how I came about it. And those are kind of the things you got to look into. And again, it's all up to the individual. You know, there's other factors with people where, you know, the cost or their budget just won't allow something like that and that. But do your research. That's what I come up with after 2 years of research and thinking about it. And then now I'll make videos on delivery and then setting it up and leveling and all that other stuff as it gets here.